Hello, everyone. This is Gary Gomes calling to talk to you about Vedic astrology. This page has been active, or this channel has been active for about close to 4 years now, or over 4 years now. And I've been making cable videos for Grid and for cable for about the same amount of time. And so I'd like to talk to you today about what's happening in the world, especially from a Vedic perspective, and especially given what's happening in the world outside. So without further ado, let's get going. All right. By the way, I did want to mention 3 friends who are sick in various stages of illness. One in Turkey, one in Norway, and one in the United States. And I hope they recover soon. Yeah, I won't go into the conditions or give their names, but I just wanted to remember them and just give a nice shout out to them and hope they recover soon. Okay. So essentially, this is, and I'll talk about that in terms of the chart we're going to look at in a few minutes. Also, if you like what I'm doing on the channel, please push that button, like, subscribe. I'll be talking about other things as the weeks progress. Some of the plans I had for, let's say, a music channel where I would be either looking at videos or talking about music might have to wait for a few months because I'm not really set up to do that right now. And also I play a little bit as well. So I need to check out my instruments and make sure they're okay. And also that my recording technology is okay. So that'll be a few months in the future. I am teaching at Kepler College. I am teaching at the American College of Vedic Astrology. They're both fine institutions. I also teach at Dire Academy, which is located out of Holland, out of the Netherlands, excuse me. And Roland DeLoof is a great guy, and he's a very generous person. So all these schools are good schools. There are a lot of ways to learn Vedic astrology. I also take on one-on-one students. And if we do the one-on-one student route, I can teach you various pujas or various rituals so they can help with the planets. Also, if I do your chart, I will not only identify what's coming up, but also give you some remedies which you can do yourself. I always think the best remedies are the ones that you actually put energy into yourself. I can help you with them if need be, but basically, some of the things you can do to propitiate a chart are actually, they range from very elaborate rituals to just doing some things differently in your life and acknowledging the psychological component, which is such a strong factor in Western astrology. It isn't quite as strong in Indian astrology, but there is an emphasis on detachment in Indian astrology. But I do have to remind people that basically, no matter what your circumstances are, and I keep getting reminded lately of this yogic principle, but it's also a principle which is shared by other belief systems, that essentially you make your own reality. And by that I mean intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, you can actually set your own reality up. So let's say if you're very sick, or you're very poor, or you're very undereducated in a subject, let's say, you can always do things, especially if you're online watching this, you can always do things which will, first of all, make you smarter. That's really, believe it or not, that's the easiest thing to do, because we have all these information bases at our fingertips, and we never bother to look into them and dig into them a little bit more. And we just say, woe is me, I can't do anything about the situation, when you actually can. It may require some changes in behavior. It may require some additional effort, but you can change your life. The second thing of it is you can change if something's more deeply buried in a chart. You can actually change through what is called planetary upayas, which in Vedic astrology can involve wearing certain stones or doing certain rituals. And by doing certain rituals, I'm not even saying going and worshiping or going into a church. Doing certain rituals can also include things like giving money to children or helping out charities if you have certain planets that are weak in the chart and you want them stronger. So there are a lot of things you can do that are just normal day-to-day activities, which can actually help your luck. Conversely, a person who's actually financially doing pretty well can feel poor. They can feel unhappy. They may be in a good marriage, but they feel dissatisfied or they feel bored. And first of all, you have to determine to yourself whether or not the fault is with your partner or the fault is with you. And I'm not saying that to cast blame. Some people are in really horrible relationships, but sometimes you can just adjust those relationships and modify them, because something like a divorce is, unless the relationship is untenable, something like a divorce is very disruptive. It tends to take a lot of energy away from. It can give a sense of freedom and exhilaration, but after a while, it starts to wear a person down. And unfortunately, there's no guarantee you'll end up with a better person. But again, everything is situational, right? So I'm not saying you should stay with a horrible person. I'm not saying you should stay with a person you don't love. Those are all individual decisions. But you have to weigh the factors as whether or not your increased happiness will compensate for the disruption that comes from change. All change causes disruption. So in Indian astrology, the Sattvic planets, the planets which don't encourage change, are the sun, the moon, and Jupiter. And those are planets which essentially are what I would call status quo planets. They like to keep things as they are. So Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, which is a traditional sign. Venus he's the teacher of the Devas, and the sun and the moon are essentially they function according to a certain set of responsibilities they have in a chart. So the sun always shine, or is always out, it's always shine, it fuels the solar system, right? The moon essentially helps control the rotation of the earth around the sun. So without the moon, our planetary rotation would be much faster. So it slows down our rotation, makes life as we know it on the earth possible. It also affects our mind. So if the moon is, and this is why it's important to pay attention to where the moon is, even if you can look at astrology charts online. If you pay attention to where the moon is, you'll see how you feel on a particular day in a particular place. So essentially, the moon is going to judge your, not necessarily your emotions as it would in Western astrology, but your sensibilities about life. So it's sort of like what I would call the common sense thinking planet. So essentially, it has to do with how we're perceiving the world, how secure we feel in the world. The moon is mother in Indian astrology. So if the moon is mom, it's essentially how secure, how stable we feel, how supported we feel in life. Sun is dad. It depends on the authority, essentially the person who's supposed to be stable in our life and who's supposed to pull things together. But if the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So over the past 2 days, it's been in, I'm going to show you from the chart, it's been in Aries. And it's still in Aries. It's really close to the end of it, around 28 degrees, 23 minutes. And it's in what's called Kritika Nakshatra. Kritika is kind of interesting because Kritika has to do with cutting or with severing things. So that's why I was talking about relationships breaking up, perhaps. Yesterday, I had recorded a video which wasn't successful, and I noticed that my family and my wife were getting kind of death obsessed, and the moon was in Bharani Nakshatra, which essentially has to do with birth, life, and death. So, so essentially, what we experience in the world, what we see happening in the world, is always reflected in through the lens of the moon. So the moon becomes extremely important in Indian astrology because it actually shows our perspective on the moon. This afternoon and tomorrow it'll be in the same sign with Rahu. So it'll be exalted, it'll be in Taurus, but there'll be this strong longing for material security, but it'll be with a disruptive planet that is afraid of. Rahu causes change. So a lot of the malefics, like Saturn, will cause us to slow down and not take any action. Mars will cause us to take too aggressive action to change things. And Rahu will frustrate our attempts to change. It will cause a lot of ambition to change. And K2 again will cause all those ambitions to change, to veer off in different directions or to fall victim to accidents. Now, we've had a lot. Now, that's a good transition to the next part of the discussion, which is going to the world map, and it's happening in people's lives. With this chart that I have up right now, this is a Libra rising. Okay, so I tend to do a lot of charts with Libra rising. It just depends on the time of day that I have that's free to do these kinds of charts. And Saturn is aspecting Libra. Mars is no longer aspecting Libra, which is good, but Mars is aspecting K2. Oof, okay, so what is K2 in charge of? Well, K2 is in charge of accidents. It's in charge of earthquakes, mass catastrophes, sort of like Neptune in Western astrology. A lot of sea disasters are connected with. So we've had mudslides in the west coast. We've had fires on the west coast. Turkey's had fires in the southern part of Turkey. Central Europe has had mudslides or just torrential downfalls. And I believe Australia is suffering through a season of fires as well. So if you go through certain parts of the map, of the astrological map, you'll see that Jupiter is actually aspecting Mars and Venus. So Venus will increase water catastrophes, Mars will increase fire catastrophes. So there's this conception in Indian astrology that Jupiter is benefic. Well, it's benefic in terms of certain things. So let's say if you have a strong Jupiter in your chart, there's a strong affinity for growth or learning. So that's good. So all learning is growth, right? However, if it's aspecting malefics or influencing malefics, it will also cause those malefics to act more aggressively. It'll give fuel to the malefics. So Jupiter's aspecting Mars. That's what I would account for the increase in COVID cases and also the increase in fires around the world. Mars is so the moon is in Kritika Nakshatra, which is a fiery nakshatra. It's ruled by the sun. Bharani was in a death nakshatra. Basically, Bharani is connected with death. It's an oversimplification. Bharani is connected with life, with birth, life, and death. And so those are the three phases of life. But Kritika is more critical. It's more cutting. So it'll cut people off from communications. It'll cause arguments, problems, difficulties. And essentially, moon is in that sign, and it's in Mars sign Aries. Mars is in a Ketu ruled nakshatra Maga in Leo. Leo is a fiery sign to begin with, so that'll cause some catastrophe. And Venus is in Purva Falguni, which is normally a good nakshatra for wealth. However, if it's in conjunction with Mars, it'll give over sexuality or over lust, and also, to a certain extent, it will bring too much water. And Ketu is in Scorpio, which is a watery sign. So Mars is aspecting Ketu. So you should see an increase in fires over the next month, not a decrease. And as I said before, as I said at the beginning of this broadcast, you should also see more increase in disease, especially as Jupiter's heading backwards, and Jupiter's in a Mars ruled nakshatra too. So we have a lot of Mars, K2 activity going on in the chart. So basically, and Saturn's in Shravana, which is a pretty good nakshatra actually. It's more balanced. Sun is in, let's look and see where Rahu is. Rahu is in Rohini nakshatra, which gives us an affinity for luxury, but can also make us a bit lazy. That is, we want a lot of stuff to be given to us. And K2 is in Anuradha, which is a Saturn-ruled Mahadasha. So essentially, Saturn goes back to this sign, and Saturn is retrograde, so Saturn's not going to pull us out of this. Essentially, the pattern will have to burn down. If Jupiter's moving backwards and it has a lot of Mars activity connected to it, Dhanishta is connected with drums and also militaristic operations. But it's more of a musical nakshatra actually than a military one. You'll have more threats of violence or things like that. Also, something that caught my eye last night: Sun and Mercury are right on top of each other. So this is called, in Western astrology, this is called Cazimi. It's supposed to enhance the attributes of Mercury, which are communication, especially rapid communication, and also it'll increase media coverage. But at the same time, the houses that Mercury rules are hurt. So people with Gemini suns or Gemini Lagnas or moons, or Virgo suns or Lagnas or moons, are hurt by this particular combination. They feel very aggravated lately. And my sun is in Virgo, so I can attest to the truth of that. But basically, Mercury will need a little bit of time to move away from the sun. It takes a while because this combustion is really intense. It's a really tight combustion. And the earliest at which Mercury can move away from the sun will be around 8 days. And let me just see, I'm just going to go ahead for about a month. So we're at August 1st right now. So let's go to September 1st. Okay. So Mercury will be away from the sun definitely by September. Let's see, about August 15th. Although the sun will be with Mars, which is not good. And August 15th, just look at this. Sorry about that. Right time. August 15th. 1 second, folks. Yeah, so around 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see Mercury out of combustion range with the sun. So the next couple of weeks are going to be kind of hot. As a matter of fact, I would say all the way until September, people are going to be really impatient, really antagonistic. Be careful driving. Be careful about fires and things like that. It's not a good year for things like that. Also, be aware of making rapid changes because this Sun combination with Mercury, um, essentially things will seem like a good idea, especially if they come from people in positions of high authority. But look, Saturn's aspecting the Sun, so the government is basically weak, or its hands are tied. They really can't do much. So we're seeing this in Congress because there's legislation pending to, and I'm not speaking either for or against this, but there's legislation pending, which looks like it won't pass, to extend the eviction moratorium. And you'll also see a lot of things being done which are not. So, and you're going to see a lot of governments, especially across the United States, cracking down around things like COVID vaccinations and things like that. And I think the sad part of this is with this Jupiter retrograde and out of Sadabishak, which actually gave some hope for the vaccinations building up, you'll actually see a lot more activity towards people resisting the vaccinations and resisting mask wearing for about 3 months. So we're already seeing spikes in COVID. All right, so don't be afraid, don't be frightened by that. It won't get that serious because other planetary combinations which existed in 2020 aren't at play here. It's just a certain amount of stupidity and unwillingness to act on government's part, and also resistance to that that'll hit us between late September and around mid-December. So you'll probably see cases go up a bit. I don't think you'll see additional variants because Capricorn doesn't mutate things, it doesn't change things. And you'll start to see a lot of relief coming around December when Jupiter moves back into Aquarius and things calm down a bit. But just watch out because people are going to get a little bit violent this time, I think. And there'll be a lot of opposition connected with the government. Yesterday, I was looking at, I was comparing, and again, you don't know what yesterday is, but basically I was July 31st. I was looking at the chart and thinking back to the trust busting activity that occurred during Teddy Roosevelt's administration. So the monopoly busting activity. And we're in a similar major planetary period, at least the way I use major planetary periods in the United States, to what happened then. And I think the monopolies you're going to see much more activity on it. And I've said this for a couple of years, but essentially are social media monopolies. And this includes things like YouTube, includes Facebook. Facebook is already under pressure from the Biden administration to stop the flow of what the Biden administration is calling bad information about or untruths about COVID vaccines. And Facebook is, I don't know if they're resisting, they're just trying to say they can't possibly handle everything that comes through. But a lot of the media companies, and again, I rely on the media companies. I love YouTube, but it seems they have become, it looks to me like they have become too big. No, I'm not sure what the way out of this is, because we rely on these tools every day for almost all of our work. But because of where Rahu was placed during the Roosevelt years, it was placed over here in Aquarius at the start. Rahu was placed in Leo at the start of this current Rahu Mahadasha. So it's a very different kind of a major planetary period. It's closer to where it was when the American Revolution broke out. So Rahu is in Leo. when the American Revolution started around 1775, a little bit after that. And Rahu was in Aquarius or Kumbh, which is actually a friendly sign to Rahu. So Rahu's efforts at reform were designed to help people. This current Rahu Mahadasha promises big change or big disruption, to be honest. There'll be not, I don't think civil war is in the cards, okay? I don't think revolutionary war is in the cards. But I do think there'll be by the time this Rahu Mahadasha is over, Rahu major planetary period is over, you'll see some constitutional changes. You'll see essentially what I would call a new form of government in the United States. Whether that's more egalitarian or less egalitarian, I don't know. History favors less egalitarian evolution. I hope I'm wrong about that. And I hope that actually government starts to pay more attention to the people and towards addressing the people's grievances from all sides. It isn't easy to do. So if people have gotten into the pattern over the past 60 years, basically, of consolidating more and more wealth into more and more into fewer and fewer people's hands, then there'll be some problems in making that transition. But I do remain optimistic that it can be done somewhat peacefully. The most violent period would probably be about, I would say probably about 2 years from now during the next elections, although it may come a little bit sooner. And I also think you'll see less inflation next year after March of next year. But again, I'm going to caution you, August looks like kind of a dangerous month, not only from infections, but also from natural catastrophes and from individual violence. So just be careful out there. Okay, be careful driving even. So let's look at. Excuse me, I really needed that. Let's look at the map of the world and see where we can expect to see hot spots and good spots. All right, and as I said last week, I get a little bit concerned when I see a lot of planets aspecting each other, because that really doesn't give a lot of room for mitigating factors. It doesn't give a lot of range. So if planets are clustered too close together in the chart, it's generally not considered to be that great. The more spread out they are, usually the better the chart is, because you'll have negatives and positives. It depends on the chart construction, of course, but you'll see more negatives and positives, more evenly distributed. So we look over here, we see the moon and Mars kind of hitting Hawaii, and Jupiter kind of edging close, Jupiter and Rahu kind of edging close to Alaska. So we can expect some kind of fire activity in Hawaii or flooding activity in Hawaii. Hopefully it's not that serious. Yesterday, the map that I pulled up yesterday, Mars was much closer. There was a Rahu line much closer to the western coast. So that's moved in the period of one day. But we do have a Sun and Mercury line passing over essentially Michigan, Ohio, close to Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and down into Georgia. So we can expect some kind of additional government control in that part of the state. And I would say this entire region right here. Mars and Moon are close together off the coast of New England. And also Cuba looks like it's set up for some, I would say, some stricter action, some more governmental crackdowns in Cuba. There is a moon line running over the Dominican Republic and Haiti, so that to me indicates more civil unrest down there, and also over Venezuela and into Peru and Ecuador. So, so again, we can expect some domestic unrest in those countries. Mars and Rahu are close together over Brazil, over central Brazil, so we can expect some fires or some panic or some disease outbreaks down there. And Venus is close to the mouth of the Amazon River and through most of Brazil. So most of Brazil will probably calm down, but Argentina will probably have more violence. And also, like swing back to the United States, this element of government control is going to be very strong over here. If I look out to California, and I just draw my attention to California for a while, a lot of things that happen in California would pursue, and this part of the country would continue for a few weeks just because of where things were last week. So that's why I'm saying I'm not seeing the fires calming down anytime soon. The We have a Rahu line running through Norway and way all the way over into China and going down to Australia and down actually more towards the more populated areas of Australia. So you can expect to see some disruption, some disease concern down there. If we look, so let's go a little bit more linear than I have been. Saturn and Mercury are in conjunction, passing over Greece. Some possibility of earthquake activity in Turkey, but again, this looks more like a fire line to me over here. So these combinations over here, they're not really earthquake potential, although I don't want to underestimate the potential for Greek earthquakes, but there's more of a sun line running right through Turkey, right here, right in this part of Turkey. So we can expect more fires, unfortunately. And these Sun Mercury lines running up through basically close to Moscow and through Eastern Europe indicate more governmental crackdowns, more restrictions, and that'll probably hold true throughout most of Russia. Let's see now. Finally, as we're looking, there's a moon line, so some flooding in China and Southeast Asia, around Myanmar, and that part of the country hasn't gotten to, that part of the world hasn't gotten to very much good news. Some flooding in Eastern Africa, some potential earthquakes or violence in Saudi Arabia, and definitely violence or disease spread in Iran and up through Russia. Russia is particularly, we don't know really what the situation is in Russia right now in terms of COVID or in terms of diseases. So it's always a little bit, certain countries don't let their information out that willingly. We'll learn a lot more from China, though, over the next few weeks, just because there's a Jupiter line running through China. And there may even be another disease outbreak over here in this part of the country. Saturn Moon opposition over here throughout what used to be Mongolia, and roughly it looks like Thailand to me, and down by let me just see now, down by Southeast Asia. Some flooding potential in Korea and some fire activity in in Eastern China. and also possibly in the Philippines. So this is going to be kind of a chock full month. I'm hoping, I guess I'll hope that we don't see a lot of earthquakes or volcanoes, especially in Hawaii, um, Turkey, and and China. Uh, it's there. There are some indications those will happen there. Also, some very dangerous weather, uh, wet weather in Japan. But one of the common themes is you'll see governments cracking down between now and August 15th pretty strongly, and not really being able to do much until next month, until August 15th to September 15th. And I just think that's going to cause major problems for a lot of people. Um, if I can make a personal plea, um, if you haven't been vaccinated yet, please do get vaccinated. It's it's not a foolproof measure by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly better than nothing. And it can help save you if you do contract COVID. Um, the mask mandate, I'm still not sure about. And I want to see what happens with in other parts of the world with that. But I don't think you're going to see a return to lockdowns. If you do, I think it'll be one of the biggest mistakes that any government can make. Um, it'll cause a lot of unrest, a lot of sadness, and it'll damage the economy more. Of course, everybody's going to do what they think is best, and I'm just giving my solitary opinion as an individual. Um, but yeah, and on the positive side, after March of next year, we'll probably see energy prices start to go down, and also start to see the economy start to really, really recover. Um, businesses I know are telling me they are having trouble finding qualified workers. Yeah, or not even qualified workers, workers period. So I'm not blaming any governmental program for that. I'm just telling you what I'm being told, and I'm in a relatively prosperous region of the country, the United States. So I live in New England, I live in Massachusetts, and a lot of businesses, especially restaurants, but even other companies, like I see help wanted ads up at retail establishments, and either people are still collecting and they don't want to get away and get out of the safety of their homes, and I understand that completely, but this is one of the reasons why you're seeing inflation. It's not even government spending, it's just that people aren't supplying labor, and if labor isn't supplied, then the cost of item goes up. The cost of item also goes up because of gasoline shortages, because gasoline drives is one of the foundational elements towards the price of any product going up. You will probably see next year, or maybe earlier, but an increase in interest rates. When that happens, that's when the stock market will start to um, dive down. But I don't think that'll happen until next March, just because of Rahu and Ketu, and also the need to maintain some hope and expectancy of consumer demand growing and consumer supply growing as well. So this was probably an unwelcome foray into economics, but the multiplier effect is it's this thing in economics called the multiplier effect, and the more money you make available, especially through banks, the faster it goes through the economy. So that's directly connected with interest rates. The multiplier effect from government programs is far less strong. As a matter of fact, it takes a lot more time for that money to hit. So it's maybe a factor of 10 versus a factor of around 4 for government spending to really change economic status. So my guess is it's a chicken or the egg problem. The economy will have to improve somewhat before people feel comfortable raising interest rates. It's sort of the dilemma it is actually identical to the dilemma we faced in the 1970s, because prices were going up and then wages were going up to follow that. And they tried to impose wage and price controls, which didn't work. And there was also what was known as the Arab oil embargo, which had deeper roots, which I won't go into here. But basically, the price of gasoline went up, the price of everything went up after that, and also wages and prices started to increase. So right now, wages have started to go up slightly. Prices have definitely started to go up, and you'll probably see some inflationary pressure because of Jupiter's influence on Capricorn and Aquarius over the next few months. After Jupiter is fully established in Aquarius, you'll probably see more of a tendency to try to control prices, because Saturn will get a lot stronger. Okay, so let's go and look at the signs for this month. We'll get out of this box. And again, please forward this class. Also, look at Lolita Donatella's webpage. I think it's called Stream. I'm sorry, not webpage, YouTube channel, Stream. And you can look up Lolita Donatella. She and I have been doing broadcasts for a few weeks now. And I'm going to be doing broadcasts with a friend of mine from Texas called Simone, who's a very talented young lady. And I do welcome other people to contact me about doing joint broadcasts. I don't mind at all. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of way to spread good knowledge and accurate knowledge about Jyotish, so people don't get panicked or confused. I realize I did give what we call a lot of bad news this month, but I don't think it's going to be horrible. I think a lot of people will benefit from this, and I think you'll actually see a lot of over the next couple of months, a lot of purging of bad actors from government over the next year and a half. Who they are, I'm not going to say. Okay. All right. All right. So let's look at Aries. Aries has the moon in it. And so this sign will be very moody this week, very focused on money and family, some arguments with children, although children will be very creative. A lot of arguments with wife, unfortunately, for this sign. Wife will be very dominant or very expressive, or relationship partner overall, relationship partner, business partner. Saturn is in the 10th house, so a lot of work for the sign, and Jupiter's in the 11th house, actually good for financial gains. For Taurus, Taurus has Rahu in the first house. Rahu likes being in Taurus because it likes material things, but it also is dissatisfied with how much it can accumulate. But Rahu's Lord, in this case Venus, is in the 4th house, but it'll make it more aggravated, more determined to get more money. And Ketu's in the 7th house. Relationship partners will seem strange, although this will seem to be a very difficult time in relationship life. A lot of people who have Scorpio and Taurus rising signs, sun signs, and this is Vedic, not Western, so this is after the 15th of the month, so May 15th to June 15th. And October 15th, and November 15th to December 15th will have some relationship problems, just and also some health issues. And people born during Cancer and Cancer Moon, Cancer rising, that's um, July 15th to August 15th, and January 15th to February 15th will have similar problems, but they'll seem to be much more difficult. But going back to Taurus, this sign has a lot of energy, a lot of get up and go, a lot of focus on home and home improvements, a lot of focus on work life. Relationship partners will actually have a lot of money coming in, so that won't be all that bad. And Saturn is in the ninth house, Jupiter's in the 10th, so there'll be career advancement for the sign. Moon is in the fourth house, though, so they'll have to put their ambitions on the back burner for the time being. Gemini, uh, first house lords in the second, so they'll be having some health problems, as I indicated before. But their sun is very strong, and their desires and ambitions are very strong. Financial life is also very strong, and friendships will also be very strong during this period for them. Ambition is really strong for this sign. K2's in the sixth. Some illnesses, as we said before. Saturn's in the eighth, slow recovery period, but Jupiter's in the ninth house. Overall, good for financial luck and financial efforts. And Moon is in the 11th house, so gain through friendships or through contributions from people. Cancer has Sun and Mercury in the first house, Venus and Mars in the second house. So some relationship disputes or relationship problems. Not many signs are escaping from this just because of where Mars is located. And there'll be a fight for control for this sign, for both this sign and Leo when I get to Leo. K2's in the fifth house. Children will seem a little bit difficult to deal with. Saturn's in the seventh house. Relationship partners will seem stubborn or difficult to deal with. Jupiter's in the eighth. Some sudden gains or unexpected gains. And Moon is in the 10th house, so some change of careers is indicated for the sign over the next few weeks, or change of work mode. Sun rules Leo. Leo has Venus and Mars in it. This is generally a good combination for career. K2's in the fourth house. It'll give some difficulty with family life. Sri Lagna is in the fifth house, so it looks overall good for finances. I haven't spoken about that placement. I'll talk about that more next week. Saturn is in the sixth house, and Jupiter's in the seventh house. So a lot of relationship opportunities coming for this sign over the next few weeks. Some of them will seem much more fiery and tantalizing than others. Some will seem kind of difficult. So this chart, it'll give romantic opportunities, but they'll be a little bit they should be approached cautiously. That's the best way to put it. Moon is in the ninth house. Moon is in the ninth house. That's right. Rahu's in the 10th. So some gain of career recognition and fame, but change of bosses. Virgo is the next sign we're looking at. Virgo, as I said, Lord of the first house is combust. It's in cosmic combustion, so it makes the sign seem much more vivid and outgoing than normal. Venus is Lord of the second house, was causing a lot of expenditures on property for this sign and family members. And K2 is in the third house, so this sign will have a lot of courage, a lot of ambition. Saturn's in the fifth, so bad news for children, for people with this sign. And Jupiter's in the sixth, so there'll be a lot of work connected with education. Moon is in the eighth, a lot of it, unexpected gains or financial gains. Rahu's in the ninth, good for increasing financial success. And Sun is in the 11th house, so good for financial gains overall. but the person will be a little bit obsessed with financial gains. That's just the downside, where they won't be focusing on much else. For Libra, Libra has K2 in the second house, so his speech will seem a little bit harsh or difficult. And Saturn's in the fourth house, so home life will seem a little bit stressed or depressing. But luck is good, especially things you've done in the past where you set yourself up to teach or give advice to people who are good. Relationship life will actually improve for the sign and will give at least 2 potential relationship partners. Rahu's in the 8th, difficult to please relationship partners, though. And Sun and Mercury are in the 10th house, very good for financial gain, very good for career and reputation. And Venus and Mars in the 11th house, extremely good for financial success. Now, for Scorpio, as I said, Scorpio is having a difficult year and a half because of the Ketu Rahu conjunction. Excuse me again. And it also has some minor health problems connected with the stomach down here with that moon in the 6th house. But basically, their luck is good, especially connected with home life. Saturn is in the 3rd house. It'll make them much more determined. And Rahu's in the 7th, so it makes a relationship partner who seems a little bit detached or unhappy. Sun and Mercury are in the 9th house. That's actually good for luck, and career life will expand rather aggressively with Venus and Mars in the 10th house. For Sagittarius, but keep in mind Mars is also aspecting this rising sign, so it's again some difficulty. For Sagittarius, Sri Lagna is in the 1st house, which is good for money. Jupiter's in the 3rd house. A lot of ambition for this chart. Money is tough to come by, a little bit difficult to come by. Children will be relatively lucky, but a little bit tough to deal with, a little bit moody. Rahu's in the 6th house. There'll be some fear about being in relationships with people, and some fear of enemies. And Sun and Mercury are in the 8th house. So again, there's a little bit of worry about inheritance and about not having enough money. Venus and Mars are in the 9th house, so it indicates increased gains from real estate. And K2's in the 12th house indicates good financial gains through property. Okay, for Capricorn, Saturn's in the 1st house. This gives what's called a Sasha Yoga, or it's a great personality yoga. And this indicates this sign will want to be in command or control over the next few months. Jupiter's in the 2nd house. It'll give good financial success, although you'll have to repeat yourself several times to get done what you want done. And Moon is in the 4th house, could indicate a small change of residence or relocation. Rahu's in the 5th house. Taurus is the lord of the sign, and it goes to the 8th house. So this will give some problems to children. Sun and Mercury are in the 7th house. This will give new relationship opportunities, although relationship partners will seem to be kind of bossy. Again, not really a good time to get into relationships for any sign, to be honest, right now. Not really until September. And from this chart, K2's the last planet that we face. K2's in the 11th house, so some unusual gains from friends. For Aquarius, Jupiter's the ruler of the 1st house. Again, more potential relationship partners. More people will be more aggressive with you in terms of romantic aspirations, but again, just be a little careful, just see how it goes. Moon is in the 3rd house, so changing desires, so the person will change their ambitions. Sun is in the 6th house, so confidence will be a little bit low this month, along with relationships with children. Venus and Mars in the seventh house, as I said, it can promise some really strong sexual connections, but not good for the long-term relationships or sexual attraction. Eighth house Lord is Mercury combust and in the sixth house, so that's actually good. So it won't give a lot of hidden enemies. And the ninth house Lord is Venus, placed in the seventh house. So good luck for relationship life. But again, see how the relationship goes. And finally, Saturn's in the 12th house. So this will give some good, some spiritual activity for the sign, but a lot of spending connected with that. Finally, off to Pisces. Pisces has Moon in the second house, which will make it better for money. Life with children will be somewhat better, although there'll be a lot of focus on it. And ambitions will be supported this month. Only one negative trait here. You have Venus and Mars in the sixth house. So that means there'll be some difficulty in keeping happy unless you're working. And the seventh house, there are no planets there. Mercury's a little bit indisposed, as we said before, so not a good time for relationship life. Eighth house Lord is Venus, which is located in the sixth house, so it does give some potential gains for property and real estate. Ketu's in the ninth house, unusual criticism from bosses or partners. And Saturn is in the 11th house. It'll give slow but stable gains. And Jupiter in the 12th house, this is actually good for this sign. It'll give last minute rescues to this particular sign. Okay, so I feel like I run a marathon. I know I haven't. I've just been sitting here speaking, but it feels like that. And that's probably because of Mercury. So the thing to keep in mind is be very careful in what you say this month. Be very careful in what you do this month. There are times you're going to have to yell at people or address people angrily. I mean, I understand that. That's part of life. But try not to, because Mars is a very destructive planet. It acts very suddenly. And if Mars is in the second house from the planet connected with speech, it will make us more prone to do and say stupid things. So just be a little bit careful about that. And I think that's it. Again, smash the like button, share this with your friends, and subscribe if you're not already subscribing. Share it, try to get more people viewing. We want to get a lot of people on this channel. We want to get a lot of people looking for remedial measures, looking for instruction, looking for good readings, non-panicky readings. And that's one of my dreams, one of my goals, to give you good information. So that's it for me for this week. It's been a pleasure as always. I wish you safety, health, and always good luck. Namaste, and thank you for having me in your home. Bye-bye now.